Tonight's big stories. Senators, including the president's sister, Amy Marcos, are questioning the locations and the purpose of the recently approved new sites for the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or the EDCA, with the U.S. Senator Amy fears that the U.S. may use the new EDCA sites to store military assets to defend Taiwan should tensions escalate between the island and China. But the Foreign Affairs Department says the Philippines may choose not to allow the U.S. to use the sites for activities not specified in the agreement.
The Health Department has released guidelines for the rollout of the second COVID-19 booster shots to the general population. Previously, only frontline healthcare workers, senior citizens, and persons with comorbidities were eligible to receive the second booster shot. This also comes as COVID-19 cases in the country registered a slight increase.
And the Housing Department is giving its Pabahay program a makeover with condo-style units for low-income beneficiaries. A closer look into the government's Condo for the Poor later on in the show.
From the nation's capital, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Sean Yao.
And I'm Regina Lay. This is the big story tonight. Welcome to the show. Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo told senators that the Philippines may choose not to allow the U.S. to use EDCA sites for military operations related to Taiwan.
Manalo said this in response to questions regarding the purpose of the EDCA sites. Some lawmakers note that these sites are not really intended for modernization or disaster preparedness, considering their locations.
But the Defense Department has assured senators that the new sites will strengthen the entire country's defense and security. Camille Samonte with the big story.
Bakit parang nakalimutan na natin, parang aasa na lang ba tayo sa mga dayuhan na ipagtanggol tayo samantalang ang ating sandatahan lakas ay nananatiling bulok, luma, armed.
This is the question asked by Senator Amy Marcos to the Departments of National Defense and Foreign Affairs following the approval of 4 additional EDCA sites. During the hearing of the Committee on Foreign Relations, Senator Marcos pointed out that it appears that the government is now relying on foreigners for its external defense. The senator also noted that it seems like EDCA's primary objective is no longer the AFP's modernization, to which Defense Secretary Carlito Galvez replied,
the modernization effort of the EDCA is basically for us to really to prepare to defend our country collectively with our allies.
Senators also questioned the selected locations of the new EDCA sites. Marcos pointed out that the chosen sites are not in areas useful for AFP modernization, as well as for disaster response in typhoon-prone areas.
The claim that it's for disaster preparedness is untrue. Capability for what, sir? Clearly, this is no longer high disaster risk and vulnerability.
The Bicol area, Region 5, is a calamity-prone area. We all know that's the gateway to typhoons. And I noticed that Region 5 is not present in terms of the EDCA sites.
Galvez pointed out that the major consideration in picking locations for EDCA sites is the total defense of the archipelago. It was also revealed in the hearing that there is still no written agreement on the 4 new EDCA sites.
Di ba nakakatakot na nagdadagdag at nag-uumpisa tayo? Ngunit wala tayong kasulatan, anumang papel, anumang kasunduan at pagkakaintindihan.
DFA Secretary Manalo explained that there are no activities yet on the new sites and that both parties still have to exchange notes on the new EDCA sites.
At the moment, there are no activities in connection with the 4 new sites because those cannot begin until we have actually made the exchange of notes, agreed on them.
The DFA secretary also noted that the Philippines will have to give its consent if the U.S. intends to use the EDCA sites for activities outside the agreement, like operations against other countries. Manalo cited paragraph 3, Article 1 of the 2014 agreement, which read that the U.S. may undertake activities like security cooperation exercises, joint and combined training activities in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief activities. Manalo said that based on the provisions of EDCA, any other activities not specified there are subject to agreement by the parties.
Now, Senator Amy also asked Secretary Manalo whether the Philippines will allow the U.S. military to repair their assets or refuel in EDCA sites if they will ever have military operations in Taiwan. Camille Samonte is back to tell us more about what the Secretary replied.
Reg Secretary Enrique Manalo says such activities will likely not be allowed, citing activities specified in Article 1 of the 2014 Pact. However, this may still be uncertain. It's worth noting that the agreement also provided in Article 3 that U.S. forces may conduct activities like refueling of aircraft, bunkering of vessels, maintenance of vehicles, and prepositioning of equipment. Article 4 also authorizes U.S. forces to store defense equipment, supplies, and materials in EDCA sites. Reg?
So just for very specific needs. Thank you so much, Camille Samonto of News 5. President Marcos has admitted that he was surprised by the statement of Chinese Ambassador Huang Xilian that made reference to OFWs in Taiwan. Marcos says the remarks may have been, quote-unquote, lost in translation. In his statement, Huang said that the Philippines should oppose Taiwan's independence if it cares about the safety of the 150,000 Filipinos on the island. Marcos said he plans to speak with Huang soon to seek clarification.
I interpret it as him trying to say that Philippines do not provoke or intensify the tensions because it will impact badly on the Filipinos. I'm sure he'll be very anxious to to give his own interpretation of what he was trying to say.
The Justice Department makes a last-minute effort to present a new witness in one of the drug cases of former Senator Laila de Lima. The case is already set for promulgation, but the DOJ's move could further delay the trial's timeline. Marlene Alcaide with a report.
More than 6 years in detention and facing several cases. This has been the fate of former Senator Laila de Lima. On May 12, one of the criminal cases against a detained former lawmaker had been set for promulgation. But this could be delayed with the prosecution filing a last-ditch motion asking to reopen the case. The prosecution filed an urgent motion for reconsideration before the Muntinlupa RTC Branch 204. They are asking the court to reopen the trial so that the prosecution can present rebuttal evidence through witness PAO lawyer attorney Demitir Huerta. They are asking the court for 1 day to hear the rebuttal evidence. Just to recall, former Bucor OIC Chief Ragos testified that De Lima received 10 million pesos in drug money from inmates in the Bilibid to fund her senatorial campaign. But last year, Ragos recanted his statement, saying he was just coerced and pressured to link De Lima. The prosecution also seeks to present rebuttal evidence against Ronnie Dayan, De Lima's former aide and driver. Dayan testified against De Lima in 2016 but also later on took back his testimony. The Muntinlupa court has yet to announce if the motion would affect the date of promulgation. The De Lima camp, meanwhile, has filed a motion for bail for the other remaining case against De Lima. The resolution for the petition is expected to be made on May 8.
Surprising move from the Justice Department. I'm curious, how is the camp of former Senator Laila de Lima taking this development? Let's bring in Marlene Alcaide for that update.
Gretchen, as expected, De Lima's camp expressed dismay over the DOJ's move. They insist that the prosecution is just delaying the case, otherwise they would have already signified intent to present a new witness last week. De Lima's camp has filed a motion to counter the DOJ's request. Also, the camp is also expecting a decision on May 8 over their appeal for bail. Gretch?
Well, we'll keep updated on that. Thank you very much, Marlene Alcaide of News 5. Up next, the government is looking to give low-income families a taste of condo living under its housing program. We'll take a look into the units when we return. Stay with us here on One News.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Big Story here on One News.
The Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs continued its hearing on the killings in Negros Oriental earlier today. And as more witnesses testified about their experiences with killings in the province. Manlos Baños reports.
Bakit interesado silang patayin kayo? For what reason?
As of now, Your Honor, hindi malabo kasi ang pero ang para sa negosyo ata.
Kasi si Arnie, Mr. Chair, meron siyang Arnie's Chicken.
Arnie's Chicken?
Tapos gusto niya yung kunin yung namin, yung business namin na tosinuan po.
This was what entrepreneurs Jason Ong and Sandy Tinguha told the Senate as it continued with its hearing on the series of killings in Negros Oriental. The two businessmen pointed to Police Staff Sergeant Noel Alabata of the Police Drug Enforcement Group Region 6 as the primary suspect who they claimed attempted to kill them in March 2021.
Yan yung si Alabata. Sabi
Yan
mo,
yung police.
Kabaril, halika tingnan mo.
Tinguha and Ong also believe that Alabata has connections with Congressman Arnie Teves, who is the alleged mastermind in the killing of Governor Ruel Degamo. Other senators meanwhile were surprised that Alabata was able to pay for bail, but Alabata said he did not know who paid for his release.
Dapat kanino mo ba sinasabi totoo?
Sa akin po.
Ha? Hindi ko po talaga alam kung sino yung nagpensa sa akin. Totoo na 100%.
Himala!
Hindi ko po talaga alam.
Himala!
Hindi ko talaga alam.
Hindi mo alam?
Hindi po talaga po.
Galing sa langit yung piyansa mo, dumating doon sa korte. Bigla na lang, boyla!
Hindi ko po talaga alam.
Isa-site in contempt na kita dito ngayon, ha? Pulis ka. Hindi mo alam kung sino nagpiyansa sa'yo.
Opo, hindi po talaga alam po.
Ano po?
In the same hearing, Siaton Mayor Fritz Diaz, nephew of the slain governor, told the Senate that the attacks were not just about competition among small chicken joints. Diaz accused Congressman Teves of needing small businesses to legitimize his alleged illegal online gambling businesses.
That's the reason, galit na galit yung mga Teves kay Gob kasi pinatigil yung faucet, isa sa faucet of money ni sila, sir.
Teves also allegedly harassed some NBI operatives who raided an isabong cockpit in Cebu.
Hindi kita isasama sa kaso ng mga tao mo pag in-negative mo ang mga order sa'yo na mag-operate ng isabong operation.
But it was not only the Teveses that was pinned down in the hearing. Colleen Pepino told the Senate panel that her husband was killed allegedly by the camp of Governor Degamo. Her husband Cornelio Pepino was gunned down in May 2020 by a riding in tandem. She said that while she didn't care about political feud between the Degamos and Teveses, the getaway vehicle used to kill the broadcaster was linked to Governor Degamo.
Pinalalabas nila na pinatay daw ng Teves si Rex.
Mayor Janice Degamo meanwhile had this to say about the allegations.
I want it on record na
lahat na sinasabi mo dito,
sometime in 2 years ago, I met with Yusek Edco
encouraging them. So what I suggested to you, Sec Edco, you write a letter like what I am doing, that I write a letter to the Senate so that we can have this investigated.
Former Governor Pride Henry Teves also attended the hearing, but he had no comment on the accusations against his brother. The hearing will continue until tomorrow, April 20. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
The World Health Organization warns that the COVID-19 pandemic is still volatile, saying there could be further trouble before the virus settles into a predictable pattern. In the last 28 days, more than 23,000 deaths and 3 million new cases have been reported to the WHO. WHO Emergencies Director Michael Ryan said that while the numbers are decreasing, lots of people are still dying and getting sick. Ryan noted that respiratory viruses do not pass from a pandemic to an endemic phase, but instead move to low levels of activity with potentially seasonal epidemic peaks. Meanwhile, the Health Department has released the guidelines on the second COVID-19 vaccine booster shots for people aged 18 and above. The department said vaccine brands Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca will be used for the second booster inoculation. Initially, the second booster shots were only made available to frontline healthcare workers, senior citizens, and persons with comorbidities. On another issue, condo living. This is what the Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development is aiming to provide beneficiaries of the government's low-cost housing program. Maricel Harili with the report.
Crisp-painted walls, spacious kitchen countertops, tiled floors, and a handful of amenities. This almost seems like something out of a property ad. But this is actually what the government plans to give housing programs beneficiaries. Condo living for the poorest of the poor. To complete the experience, the project will include amenities like a swimming pool, a gym, and a playground for kids. What's even more is beneficiaries can own a unit for 2,000 to 3,500 pesos a month, depending on the floor area. And the property is also payable for 30 years.
Dire-diretso, walang down payment. Kaya nga, pang mahirap eh. Para lahat po pwedeng magkabahay. Kasi kung magda-down payment ka pa, mag-iipon pa, paano mapapalis yung mga ISF?
The local government where the housing program is located will choose the beneficiaries. In Bulacan alone, about 30,000 housing units will be developed in 6 different towns of the province. President Bongbong Marcos personally led its groundbreaking ceremony this morning.
Bukod sa pabahay, ang proyektong ito ay magpapalawig pa at madaragdagan balang araw ang mga kaugnay na pasilidad tulad po ng edukasyon, pangalusugan at iba pa. Hindi na magtatagal, ang proyektong ito ay magiging isang tunay, kumpleto at masiglang komunidad.
For the first year of the housing project, the government has already inaugurated 1.2 million housing units. Their target is to construct 1 million housing units a year to fill the 6.5 million housing backlog in the country.
The Marcos government's housing program comes as a stark contrast to traditional low-cost housing. But is it sustainable? Maricel Haridi tells us.
Gretsch, the national government earlier announced that it is targeting a 1 billion peso subsidy for the housing projects to accommodate the low-income families. We have yet to see if there will be problems along the way in funding these projects. But according to the housing department, each unit can accommodate a family of 5, and it is also a welcome development for the poorest of the poor to have a decent and affordable housing. Gretsch?
Well, more options for low-cost housing. Thank you very much, Maricel Harili of News 5.
Veteran sportscaster and Association of Boxing Alliances in the Philippines President Ed Picson has died. Picson reportedly died due to a lingering illness. He was 69. Before his stint in ABAP, Picson was one of the PBA's notable commentators from the 1980s to the early 2000s. He was known for being a commentator on the television program Blow by Blow, which featured the early fights of boxing legend Manny Pacquiao. He soon transitioned into sports politics and joined the ABAP, where he served as Secretary General for several years. Under his guidance, the Philippines reached its best finish in the Tokyo Olympics boxing with 2 silvers and a bronze, courtesy of Nesty Petesio, Yumir Marcial, and Carlo Paalam.
After the break, the government is seeking full rice self-sufficiency in 4 years, even as the country faces a looming crisis on its staple commodity. But is this possible? We'll look into that and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One Youth.
Welcome back. You are still watching The Big Story here on One News.
The government wants the country to achieve full self-sufficiency in rice in just 4 years. This is through the Agriculture Department's Masagana Rice Program. The 5-year program aims to stabilize the country's rice supply to 28.6 million metric tons. It also seeks to lower rice inflation to less than 1% annually and raise farmers' income by over 50%. But as early as now, groups like the Federation of Free Farmers are casting doubts on this goal. The group says that high production costs and excessive importation should first be addressed. For now, the Agriculture Department is studying where the National Food Authority can source its buffer stock after the agency scrapped plans to import over 300,000 metric tons of rice.
We are now trying to find out how NFA could really, buy its buffer stocks, at a price level na hindi siya masyadong makikipag-compete sa mga traders. It's really more of timing and where to buy.
And before we go, Manila Times Tech and Business Editor Jing Garcia warns the public against using public USB charging stations in malls, hotels, and other business establishments. Speaking to Radyo 5 Ted Filon and DJ Chacha, Garcia says these stations could be used for hacking of devices like cell phones, tablets, and laptops, especially if the port is connected to the internet LAN or local area network. The Manila Times editor says establishments may use these charging ports for data gathering, but warns that this could also lead to identity theft. The US FBI has earlier issued its own warning against the use of public phone charging stations to avoid exposing devices to malicious software. Garcia now advises the public to click Don't Allow when their devices ask them permission to connect or share data, or to simply bring their own chargers.
Di ba tinatanong ka rin ng computer mo, ng laptop mo, do you trust this browser or do you trust this connection? Yan yung mga security precautions din ng mga smartphone companies para to protect the user.
Okay.
Na hindi basta-basta trusted yung mga sinasaksakan. Pero safest talaga, yung madala ka ng sarili mong charger.
Power
yung
bank.
Plug yan, power bank.
This bit of news makes me super paranoid. I mean, I've traveled lately a lot, and every time I see a USB port, I feel
just like
a load
obliged.
of comfort. Yeah, in the airport.
Here's something to make you even more paranoid.
Oh my God.
It's actually the US FBI who first raised the story last week, and that's how it became. So the technical term is juice jacking, right? And that's because they've monitored some instances where criminals did manage to
infiltrate your phone,
malware or monitoring software into the cables and then siphon off your information.
So first,
it's not just us, by the way. It's
Everywhere. Yeah. But also like public Wi-Fi, public access Wi-Fi for free. I've learned my lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Facebook got hacked. But that was years
Never
ago.
trust those.
Yeah, never trust those. So just be careful
Mhm.
and bring a power bank, I suppose.
I
Or
think
your own
especially
plug.
when they ask you, are you willing to trust this
yeah, that's
device? That's when it says that it might be doing more than charging your gadget. But I'm just curious, are airplanes also involved in this? Because it's a USB port, right?
Yeah, there is,
Inside
but
the
it never has asked me to trust the airplane USB port, so I don't know.
Better be
So
safe
what
than
are
sorry,
our
right?
options?
Power bank.
I don't know.
Power bank or bring your own
You can't always bring your own power
No,
bank.
bring your
It's
own
so
charger.
hard.
charger.
Bring your own charger.
Complete with the wall outlet.
Well, where are you
Yeah.
supposed to plug it, right? That's the
Into
question.
the outlet. So if you plug it into the electrical outlet, I don't think
It's safe.
this
It's
counts.
pretty much safe.
They're talking about, these new wall outlets where you see an actual USB port already in there and you're like, wow, it's 2023. I
Okay,
can
and
do
then
this.
one day we're gonna read a news item saying that even the electrical outlets
God.
themselves.
But that's
But
too much
until
now.
until then, well, you know what?
Oh
It is
my
April
God.
19th.
That's right. That's right.
I heard.
We have another top story for you guys, and well, a riddle really. Is someone celebrating her birthday
I don't think
today?
so. I think so because
Yes, I think
there is
so.
this
Is it
amazing
you?
chocolate cake. No, it's not me, or they would not have given me this cake.
It's not me either.
Fun fact, also
and there's
born
just
today.
one person left.
No, also
born
born
today.
today is Era Estrada, Kim Chu, Albert Martinez, Ashley Rivera, and our very own Cherry Baile.
Wow.
And more pa. So I
And-
know. I
So you
have
feel like
many-
you share characteristics
No, I
with all
know.
these people.
I
But
know.
that cake, it's not
The
going to be
common-
enough for all
common
of
characteristic is we have a lot of energy and we can sometimes go crazy. In a good
Be
way, in a
one.
good way.
But because we
Hopefully.
like you, we're not going to do an age reveal unless, of course, you want to do it yourself.
But what we will do is to give you all the best wishes that we
yay.
have. And of course, greet you a happy birthday.
Hey, this is my
birthday,
first
Gretch.
birthday with you guys.
Yes,
more
it
to
is.
come.
More to come. More
That
to
would
come.
be my birthday wish for this year.
Happy birthday.
Thank you to the big story team.
Feel free to send your wishes to Gretchen Ho on
And
social
roses.
media. And roses and whatever else you want to send her. She's on social media.
Send it to
We
TV5.
accept lechons as well.
And that is the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analyses. I'm Regina Lake.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Sean Yao. Stay safe, Philippines.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. We are One News, all sides, all the time.